Hello, welcome. This is the Adhipateyya Sutta. It's a wonderful sutta. Actually, this might only be part one of discussing this because it's such a beautiful sutta that I really love. But there's one part in particular that I was sharing with someone earlier today, and I wanted to share it because I just love how beautiful this is, especially for practice. It's a practical, very practical instruction, and I love to share this with people. So the Adhipateyya Sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, probably messing all this up, it's called the Governing Principles, the Discourse on the Governing Principles. And this is obviously the Buddha. This is the Pali canon, written in the Pali language, which was the language of the Buddha back in the time of the Buddha, which no longer exists. So this is the governing principles, and the sutta goes through 3 different governing principles. I'm not going to get into all of it because there's just one line that I think is really beautiful, and that's the one I want to share with you. And so I will read that now. So as is often the case with these suttas, he's giving instructions to the monks, so he starts it off by saying, "There is the case where a monk, having gone to a wilderness, to the foot of a tree, or to an empty dwelling, reflects on this." And then he goes on to different things to reflect upon. So this is what a monk should be reflecting on, and this is how a monk should be training himself. And he says, so he reflects on this. And this is a training now. My persistence will be aroused and not lax. My mindfulness established and not confused. My body calm and not aroused. My mind centered and unified. So I'll read that again in a bit, but basically up until that point, he's sort of leading up to like, okay, first you have a sort of motivation for practicing. And once you're motivated, well, what should you do? And this is what you should do. If you have a really strong resolve of like, this is something I care about. This is something I care about. I care about this practice of meditation, or whatever your reason is. I care about finding peace within myself. I care about being a more kind person to others, or I care about cultivating wisdom and not wandering around in delusion. You find what you care about, and then my persistence will be aroused and not lax. It's like a resolve. Yeah, I will be persistent with this. I care about this. I'm going to arouse my persistence and not be lazy, not be lax. And that contrasts later on where he says, my body calm and not aroused. So we're arousing our persistence, like energy, effort, persistence, keep going. I'm going to do this. I care about this. But then with the body calm and not aroused. And that's such an interesting contrast. And that's a beautiful contrast. It speaks to so much of what meditation is. It's this persistence that is calm. Calm persistence. Calmly persisting again and again and again. Doing the work. Keep doing the work. Keep coming back. Keep coming back to the breath. Keep coming back to the body. Keep coming back to the basic principles, the wholesome qualities of mind. Keep coming back to the equanimity, to the calm, the tranquility, the joy. Keep coming back. It takes persistence, but a calm persistence. And this is a practice I can even do in my body, and I would do this on retreat, and I enjoy doing this on retreat, which is why I enjoy sharing this, is actually just sitting there and remembering, okay, my persistence, making a resolve, my persistence will be aroused and my body will be calm. My persistence aroused and not lax. My body calm and not aroused. Because if the body's aroused, and not that the body can't be energized and like alive, because the body wants to be alive too, but in this sense, I think for me at least, the way I read aroused as being like tense and tight. Like if the body's tight and tense, then it doesn't work. It's contracted and it's tight and it's tense, and the meditation doesn't flow, and it's painful and it's exhausting. And eventually we're just exhausted by our meditation practice. And also the body's calm as a way of bringing about a mental calmness too, because there has to be a mental calm to really penetrate down into like very subtle experiences, to be able to feel like the underlying sense of peace that's going on amidst the surface ripples of our daily life. There has to be a calmness. So my persistence will be aroused and not lax, my body calm and not aroused. My mindfulness established and not confused. And there's different definitions of mindfulness, but mindfulness in terms of attentiveness to our experience, alertness, being aware of what's happening. So my mind itself is established in the present moment. And not confused. I like that's confusion is the contrast to an established mindfulness. And what that means to me, established and not confused, is like it's as simple as like a hand. This is a hand. I'm not confused that this is a hand, and that's a sensation. These are tingles in my fingers. There's a pain in my wrist. That's what this is. This is being known. I am knowing my hand in this moment. I know that I'm knowing. This is my voice. This is me talking. I know that I'm talking. If I'm actually paying attention in the moment, there's no confusion there. That this is simply this. It is what it is because it's here right now. That's it. And there can be so much confusion in meditation, especially for me. My mind can get confusion easily, and confusion, I think, arises a lot when we're trying to understand things through thought. So I'm trying to think, like, well, what is a hand? And like my mind wants to figure out, what is a hand, though? I don't understand. A hand is a thing that has 5 fingers, it has skin, it has blood, and it's bones, and I'm trying to think about that. And if hands maybe not that complicated, but if I'm trying to figure out like what is meditation and why is it not working, what's going on, like, and the mind is trying to do something, then there's a confusion. And if I'm confused, coming back, establishing mindfulness, establishing something. If I'm very confused, sometimes something very simple helps. Breath. This is breath. Breath. This is breath. This is body. These are knees. This is cold. This is hearing. This is moisture in the mouth. This is swallowing. This is blinking. This is smiling. This is this moment. This is where I am. This is here. This is now. So starting with what is known, what is not confusing about this moment, and establishing mindfulness right there on that thing, and not trying to think like, well, this isn't complicated enough. Like meditation, I'm supposed to be something much more complicated than just knowing that my hand is my hand. But that's where you start, and at some points in meditation, some very strange and mysterious things might reveal themselves about nature, some things that are very subtle or complex or colorful, intricate. Those may also be known. But I like this practice of like, okay, my persistence is aroused. I will persist. There's a resolve. There's a will. My mindfulness is established. I know this moment. I am knowing this moment. And mindfulness also in the sense of like being holding in mind the intention here. Holding in mind this intention. The intention is to meditate in this moment, or whatever the intention is. The intention is to be present, or the intention is to love or care. Holding in mind the intention. So that's also established, is like established, and that's being established simply by remembering this training. Like, okay, I'm establishing my persistence, I'm establishing my mindfulness, I'm establishing my calmness. And then the final one, my mind centered and unified. Centered and unified. Now that's interesting, because the last one is not this and not that, right? It's my persistence is aroused and not lax. My mindfulness is established and not confused. My body's calm and not aroused. The last one's just like centered and unified. And I think there's probably something to that, or maybe I'm just reading into it, but I mean, that's the essence of being centered, is that you're no longer this or that. No longer oscillating between aroused and lax, excited, relaxed, excited, lazy, excited, lazy, something like that, or sleepy, stressed, sleepy, stressed, sleepy, stressed, sleepy, stressed. Center, what is that right in the center? And unified. Unified no longer in the sense maybe of like this duality of opposites. So it's a really beautiful sort of like what is happening here is establishing the persistence, establishing the mindfulness, calming the body, and then it's like centered and unified. And in a real practical sense, I can notice the scatter of the mind, noticing, well, where is the mind that's not unified and not centered? Where is it oscillating around between different poles of opposites? The tiny little thoughts of the past and the future, little memories and images of like, oh, this and that, that's blah blah blah, and then this commentary of like of chatter of the voice that's like, oh, Daniel's talking right now, oh, you're talking about this, and that's very, maybe you should say that, maybe you shouldn't say this, and, oh, now he's thinking and now he's talking about his thoughts, like that little commentary thread. Or different sensations, like, oh, now I'm itching back here and my foot's starting to go numb and I feel cold on my hand. It's like this soup of experience all happening. And can it become unified, centered? So that's a little of my own interpretation from my own practice. I'll read it again. A monk, a meditator. A meditator reflects on this. My persistence will be aroused and not lax. My mindfulness established and not confused. My body calm and not aroused. My mind centered and unified. And that's just one little refrain in this long sutta and this long discourse. There's a lot of other good stuff in this discourse as well, but I really just kind of wanted to talk about that, share that. I think that those instructions alone would make for an amazing meditation practice right there. I could imagine just sitting down. In fact, I have spent many hours just sitting with that, again and again, bringing myself back to that, to this resolution of arouse the persistence, the energy, and the effort. Establish the mindfulness. Don't be confused. Know things as they are. Keep the body calm. Breathe, relax, calm. Move slowly. Still the body. Still the body, and then you still the mind. The mind becomes centered and unified, bringing it back from all of its distractions. So may that also be fruitful in your own meditation practice. May it bring you joy and peace and insight, wisdom.